name is Dr. Rick Seguil.
And action. Hey, Jay, this is Kirk again. And action. Hey everyone, it's Dr. Rick. And Felicia had a question about fixing disease. Now, fixing disease, you would think it'd be easy. However, fixing disease after the horse has been let out of the barn, that might be a problem. But if this is the first time you're finding me, don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the alert button, and wash your hands. But the alert button to find out when I do new videos. Wash your hands, wash your hands. Those of you who watched my last video on coronavirus, Beat Corona, if you haven't seen it, I have to do a segue here. This is the Hopkins website. It posts daily updates on outbreaks. And this is the Johns Hopkins website for the United States. I zoomed in a little bit. Last Friday, there were blooms in Seattle, California, New York, and a tiny bloom here and there. This is speckled. That means there's a lot of positive cases. That doesn't mean deaths, but it means there's a lot more positive cases. That's only been since Friday. That's 5 days ago. Today's Wednesday. So this is here. If you watched Italy, last I saw, I forgot the doctor's name that's running all the ICUs, but he just announced that they have 600 patients in 55 different ICUs, 600 patients in 55 different ICUs around the country taking care of corona. And you don't go to ICU unless you're severe. And just for example, at Sherman Hospital in Elgin, we have 32 beds in the ICU, 600 cases in the ICU. And he reported a 20-year-old just got intubated out of the 600. So he said that because the majority of cases, I think the average was 65 years of age. That means there are some people above, some people below. But the deaths are usually towards the 80-year-olds. And it was sad, but he said he has to figure out who gets to use the ICU because there's so many, the system is being swamped. And I don't know if they're doing a good job. Well, they're doing the best they can, but I believe he said in his interview with British media, they had to create ICU beds in a snap because of the quick spread. And if you don't know, this is a quick spread, so the quick spread is going to escalate. Hopefully, it won't escalate, but that's the thing with waiting for after the fact. If you wait till after the fact, if you wait till after the fact, it'll just be like Italy. We should learn from Italy. And I think he described a bomb going off, but he described something even worse because not only does a bomb go off, the bomb stops. But this sets off other smaller bombs, and those go off. So you have to get ahead of this. So I figured this is also a way to explain what to do when you have disease, especially in the United States, because we're so not proactive. In Western medicine, is a disease management system. And we, I think, unfortunately, base a lot of our treatment plans on a prescription medicine of some sort. So the idea is that if you have a disease, then we know the medicine to give, and it should take care of the disease. So diabetes, if you know you have diabetes, then you give diabetic medicine, it should take care of the disease, right? How many times did that happen? I always say the diabetic medicine will take care of the number that I check every 3 to 4 months, but if the belly keeps on ballooning and if the eating habit doesn't change, you'll need another medicine because the disease will get worse, and then you need another medicine, and you might control more blood tests, but you'll eventually get fatter. Unfortunately, obesity is going to be the link that commonly puts everything together. Obesity and unmindful practice of eating will lead to, mindless eating, will lead to higher cholesterol, higher glucose, higher blood pressure, gout flare-ups, arthritis after that, heart attack after that, stroke after that, increase in cancer rate. So all these inflammation triggers can be started with diet. So in fixing disease, you have to declare what is a timeline of the disease. So you have to know your timeline. And I just explained it. So if we use this, if there's a graph here on the side, and we use a timeline has, here's us when we're 20 and super skinny. And then we get married, and then we have kids, and then the weight goes up when you get another job, and then the weight goes up as you get older, and then the weight goes up as you hit menopause. So you can see that it continues to climb. So if you know your timeline in that regard, then you know that if you're in your 50s and you haven't done anything, it's going to be heading that way. You might want to do something in your 40s, or if you're in your 30s and that's what the family tree is like, don't wait till you're 50 or 40, because then you'll be on a couple of different medicines and still in essentially no control of your disease. So if you know your timeline, at least you can prepare, right? That's getting the horse before it leaves the barn. So that's the common thing for diabetes. The common thing for diabetes is always to end up here. So you start at a little bit of eating when you're 20. And again, my 20-year-olds, I'm so jealous. 20-year-olds, and I used to do it too. I used to be able to finish a half gallon of ice cream in one sitting and not even gain weight. Now I just smell ice cream, I can't even take ice cream, but I just smell it and my love handles like go out to the side. So the timeline is like this with diabetes. 20s, a little bit of a problem. 30s, the development of a pouch, maybe blood pressure. 40s, less activity because you have two jobs and you're taking care of your kid. 50s, you're deep into work, you're thinking about retirement, so you have to work twice as hard, and your kids need a little bit of help, and then you pay for a $100,000 wedding. And then 60s, medical problems start to accumulate, you're getting slower, you're having aches and pains, you got to call off from work because you have to go visit the doctor, you have to have surgery, hip knee replacement. So you can see that you know the timeline. And up here is usually for diabetes, if you start the timeline here and go this way, diabetes is going to be insulin at the end. Insulin and then insulin coma. Not good. So the timeline for cholesterol, you start with cholesterol down here, have an elevated cholesterol, you might need a stent, you might be able to look okay with your symptoms, and then you will, if you don't change your ways, bypass. And then further stuff after bypass, but usually you're dead by then. So cancer, same thing. It starts over here, precancer, and it goes away. And then maybe if you don't change your ways, cancer recurrence. And then if you don't change your ways, cancer and treatment plan. And then it doesn't come back, but you have your second cancer because of the chemotherapy. So you can see what happens. So if you know your timeline, you can plan appropriately. If we know COVID-19 is coming to the U.S., start screening. We're not screening. I think if anybody, I had one patient that got sick, a pneumonia, and didn't travel, but was in direct contact with her CFO from Spain. And I'm hoping that the CFO is testing negative. But if she's testing positive, or if he tested positive and she's got pneumonia but feeling better, we all still have to get tested. And what do we have to do? You have to call the IDPH and ask them. Because even if I send people to the emergency room, they can't test. The IDPH, Illinois Department of Public Health, has to approve it. Why? Well, I know why. There's no test kits. So I talked about this rant before, but I don't mean to turn this into a COVID problem and an IDPH problem, but need more test kits, guys. So if you know your disease, you can prepare for the disease. Second thing, Felicia, sorry I'm getting on my COVID rant, but it's a perfect explanation. The horse is left, the cat's out of the bag, the damage is done, but know your resources. So if you know your resources, like in the case of the timeline of diabetes or cholesterol and heart attack or cancer, if you know your resources, both Western and Eastern medicine-wise, you're good, because when you pull the trigger and say you want to commit, you're ready to commit, then you can call on those resources. So Western medicine is covered by insurance. And that's pretty good if you have a disease process. So the way Western medicine works, for example, for a knee problem. No, just take a diabetes issue. If you're declared as diabetic, then you can on the insurance, depending on your deductible, you can see an eye doctor every year, a foot doctor every year, and you get your hemoglobin A1C done every 3 to 4 months. That'll determine if you're making headway with regards to treatment. Again, treatment of choice is always changing nutrition, exercise and move, sleep deep, and lose weight. That's the treatment of choice first. But what do? We usually jump to medicines, metformin, and if metformin doesn't work, glyburide. And metformin is a good drug. I know there's been some ups and downs with it, but I think I've done a video on metformin use, so I'll put a link down below. But if you know your resources, you can take advantage. But again, you have to have the disease. That's why it's a disease management thing. If you use Western medicine, you have to have the disease first, and then you can get the resources to work on it. Ass backwards. So if you say you're declared diabetic, then you can go see a registered dietitian to teach you. But if you're a pre-diabetic, or you're a little bit overweight, but you're not there yet, nope, you're on your own, Joe. So the problem, or Jane, the problem would be if you're on your own, where do you get the resources? And that's a little sketchy. I mean, I have my nuggets of excellent resources in the community, whether it's a nutritionist or a very well-versed exercise physiologist or a life coach, and I'm going to be a life coach, so I'll be in the community. The idea is you tap those resources and you suck in the information. If you ever go to my office, I've got books in my office that I read. I do them mostly to fall asleep, and because I don't like looking at screens at night, and you shouldn't be looking at screens at night because it screws up your circadian rhythm. So I read books. Some of them are just painfully boring, but that's okay. The more painful, boring they are, the faster I go to sleep. I wind up with my glasses over here and my book somewhere, piece of saliva drip on my page. But it does, I eventually get through the book, and I think it's a positive read or it's a negative read. But if it's super exciting, then I don't get to go to sleep. Or I read a couple pages, a chapter, and then I put it away saying, okay, I'm done. But I think the hypnotic going back and forth really makes me fall asleep. But you can read on your own. You just have to know what to read because there's a ton of information out there. And if the information out there is good, great. But if the information, and I've seen some goofy YouTubers, and I guess I'm a YouTuber, but I've seen some goofy YouTubers thinking, what the heck is that guy saying? Some guy's talking about norepinephrine or noradrenaline for weight loss more than insulin, or insulin can be beat by just ACV, apple cider vinegar only. I actually had a patient come in, took care of a skin lesion with apple cider vinegar. And I think that's a fair start, but not for 3 months. You got to come in and get the knowledge. I've got the knowledge. I'll share it. I'll share it on these videos to save time in the office since I'm only allowed 15-minute visits. Well, technically I can have more than 15 minutes, but every other primary care is 15 minutes. Knock on wood, so far so good. I can take more than 15 minutes, just comes out of my paycheck. Yay. So know your resources. The other part of resource knowing or being aware is Eastern medicine, because I think there's a lot of good things, and that's the alternative medicine side. And unfortunately, if you don't have a disease process like diabetes or cholesterol or precancer or precancer, cancer or precancer, cholesterol or pre-cholesterol, diabetes or prediabetes or insulin resistance, you have to seek out people. And again, the resources are that you read books, you watch podcasts, but you know the community. And there are a lot of good chiropractors that do functional medicine. There are some pretty darn good naturopaths. The naturopaths are in Seattle at Bastyr University. It's like the Harvard of NDs, N as in Nancy, D, naturopathic doctor. Bastyr is the Harvard, and I know two. But Illinois doesn't recognize NDs. So the NDs that practice in Illinois can't bill insurance. It's unfortunate. I know some very good NDs, but in fact, I'm not sure what happens with the certification process. But it's a more rigid certification process for acupuncturists than it is for NDs, which is a shame because the NDs could take the load of burden off of the medical community and make it easier. But so unfortunately, not covered by insurance. Some acupuncturists that I know are fantastic. Check out Dr. Angel, and I'll put a link down below. I also know Leon Chen over in Lombard, East West Healing Center. There's a Dr. Yu Zhu I used to work with. I'm not sure. I think she's in Oak Brook now. but great acupuncturists, and they usually know their T's. So acupuncturists are known for using cupping or needling to stimulate meridians. Check out the video I did. And they also, if they have time and or an apothecary, they can dial in the proper amount of teas to give you to give your body a taste of an herb that might be missing in your life. So that is Eastern medicine. Nutrition, unfortunately, should be considered alternative, and I lump it into Eastern medicine. Energy healing is alternative, and I lump it into Eastern medicine. Manual therapy, craniosacral massage, lymphatic drainage, all not covered by insurance, so I lump it into Eastern medicine because it really works. Even to the point of, sometimes some people would say shamanic healing. I had a great healer that came in today. I tell you, I could feel the energy in him. I don't want to get into too much energy talk, but he was fantastic. But unfortunately, I told him, you're good, you have a lot of training that is necessary, but don't tell doctors what you're doing. Because if you tell a doctor, he'll tell you immediately you're schizophrenic. So that's just the black and white of Western medicine. In Western medicine, we use Newtonian physics to say A plus B equals C. So depression equals antidepressant medicine. Hypercholesterolemia equals cholesterol medicine. That's it. Now in Einsteinian medicine, it's more touch and feel. It's more feeling energy. It's more quantum physics. And it does work. Even the ideas about the brain, but unfortunately in Western medicine, we don't appreciate that. We don't say it's true because you have to have a randomized controlled trial to say it's true, which is totally garbage. I mean, randomized controlled trials are good, but you can't measure something like energy medicine. I think that there are some trials that came out with acupuncture helping with chronic back pain, infertility, and headaches, which is cool, but there's so much more than that. Even this concept of medical cannabis, marijuana, it's such a beautiful plant, so useful, but Western medicine says no, so it's poo-pooed, and I get in trouble. So it's not fair. Anyway, you got to know your resources. If you know your resources, then when time comes and you're ready to pull the trigger, you're ready to commit, get to your resources. So next thing is to know and admit to your weaknesses. So kinks in the armor are okay, but sometimes it's hard to admit to that. And one of the biggest admissions, well, they're not admissions because nobody admits to it, but I'll ask, what is your mindful practice on my intake? And usually, or I used to say spirituality, but that kind of rubbed people the wrong way. The usual answer was, I don't go to church. And that's not really spiritual. You don't have to have a religion to be spiritual. Japanese forest bathing, going for a hike is spiritual. Making a pottery piece is spiritual. Painting is spiritual. Singing is spiritual. But if you don't do something on a regular basis, and you just have nothing but arduous, I got to work with this computer, I got to see 20 patients 30 patients in a day, and you have no spiritual practice, man, you're so lopsided. So I usually, even my guys, I did a video for Ed as far as stalling on his weight loss, and he gave me every tangible metric that he's doing to lose weight, but he's plateaued, and right in the middle of all those numbers, he's an intelligent guy, he put down, I have stress, but who doesn't? It's like we just blew over that. That's the weak link. So you should know your weaknesses and admit to them and then get prepared, because when you take advantage of your resources, once you know the timeline of the disease process, it's okay to address a weakness. But if you know what the weakness is in yourself, or you know what the weakness is in the resources that you have, at least, or your time. If you're entering into that slope where it's like your 60s, your 50s and 60s, I'm 57. And I know my time is coming, but at least I'm happy, content for the investment I did. Now I just have to transition that to me. Am I happy or content for the investment I did with my kids so they're safe? And I got a lot of work to do with that. So you can see the timeline is shortening and accelerating, but I got to work fast. So every minute is for my family. Every minute is for me, I guess. Well, not really, but I will be getting it that way. So at least I can admit to the weaknesses and work on them. Next would be improve your strengths. So you would think improve your weaknesses, but I think if your strengths are strong, or you have strengths like exercise for changing disease, a little bit of nutrition for changing disease. I don't care if you're vegan like me, or FMD, or paleo, or keto, or intermittent fasting. If you know your strengths, you really embrace them and hold on to them, ground them so they're immobile. You cannot move. If you cannot move a structure, then that structure is strong, no matter what the timeline of the disease is. So know what your strengths are and strengthen them more. So if you have exercise, you touched a little bit of exercise and it worked before, really be good at it. If you think that you're going through a couple of different nutrition practices and one of them worked, get back to it. If it didn't work, do something different, but get something that'll work and hang on to it. Because if you're anchored down in the disease process, no matter how far you are in the disease process, at least you know you can't go backwards. If you go backward, not go backwards in time, but go backwards and get worse. So if you improve the way you are up here, and then you let go because you didn't strengthen your exercise, you're just going to accelerate this speed to the end. So I'd say, instead of just being a little bit here with exercise, a little bit there with nutrition, both speed in, 110%. You have to commit, there's no question. But the problem is, a lot of people don't understand. Like with this COVID thing, nobody seems to get it because the public is undereducated, and we're going to get overwhelmed big time. So go 110%, commit, and then you can get ahead of the disease. In this COVID-19, we're not getting ahead of the disease. We're not committing. It's like half-assed. In fact, there's a St. Paddy's Day thing coming up, and even Ireland is not celebrating St. Paddy's Day. They canceled everything, and yet Chicago is going to have a St. Paddy's Day run. I was going to take my patient friend, Eddie. I pushed him last year. I'm not having him come here because the problem is, if I get him down there, if he has a hotel, if I meet him and we sign in and we see everybody and we get some water breaks and open the potty doors, you know what I mean, porta potties, we can have the chance of having COVID-19. And I think I'll do okay. I hope I'll do okay. But God forbid if I become the carrier and spread it to an 80-year-old and that person dies. I don't want to be responsible for that. And don't think, again, the Italian doctor said that there was a 20-year-old that needed intubation. Don't think just because you're youthful that you won't have it. No question, as you're older, you will not make it past the disease. So I have a lot of 70 and 80-year-olds that are healthy. They should do fine. But I tell you, because the average person going into the ICU in Italy was 65, that means 55-year-olds were going to the ICU. So if you're an unhealthy 55-year-old, listen to me. If you have diabetes and you decide not to take care of it because you wanted to wait, if you have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, and you say, I'll do it naturally, and you get hit with COVID-19, you got to start moving ass, because if you're trying to stop smoking, but you're going to wait till next year, hey, this is going to be a trial for everybody. So start moving your ass now, because you're going to get ahead of it if you know the disease process. And you're not getting the information on COVID, but I'm telling you about diabetes and cholesterol and high blood pressure and cancer. So know your disease, strengthen, and then get ready for it. Finally, you have to build an awareness, because you will need a support system. I think that if we are comfortable with what we do, like me, I will share everything, and I will hold every free thing I can for my guys just to come in, because I want, number one, it strengthens my knowledge base when I understand the disease process, and I understand how people react, and I can see what people need. But I want to share that, because if all of us are strong, then the community will fare better. Because honestly, even though I'm healthy, I think I'm healthy, if I have to take care of a lot of sick people, either physically or with my tax dollars, I mean, the system, just to go back to COVID, the system for ICUs, if we get overwhelmed, just 32 people in Sherman will be overwhelmed. And then where we put the other people who are going to have surgery, because they need to be in the ICU. Well, what happens to them? No surgeries? So you got to prepare ahead of time. So I think it's important to build awareness, have people spread the information, be a beacon so other people will mimic you. They might not be ready, but when they're ready, that's when you have to have, here's your 7-page manual for getting healthy. Here's your 5-step process for getting healthy. But if you have it in an algorithm or a protocol and you repeat it over and over again, it'll be so easy to just roll off your shoulders and just give somebody else the chance. Because if that person gets better and you get better and you get tired, you can look at that person and say, I want to take your energy and pick myself up. So I said it before, going to a yoga class or going to work out, I turn on a Metallica, even if I'm dead tired. I turn on Metallica, I get the mind going, or I go to a yoga class, I don't want to do this, I listen to the instructor, I look at everybody else, I am jacked up. And that just is looking and being aware because everybody else is participating. So it's nice to spread the information. It's supportive of you to spread the information. That's your backdrop, and that's your community of health. And finally, prep for a setback. I think there's always going to be a setback. Just get back up. With chronic fatigue, you can't have a problem where it sets you back and you feel terrible for a while. But that's okay. Expect that. If you know your timeline, expect it. Just recoil, reheal, and get back to it. You got to get back up no matter what. I have a saying that I was given from when I went to Harvard at the Henry Benson Institute, and this was given to me by one of the instructors. And it's a saying, take the first step in faith. You don't have to see the whole staircase. Pretty cool. I kept it since I did the mindful or the relaxation. It was a relaxation response that Herb Benson gave and a whole bunch of great Harvard instructors. It was fantastic. My first foray into mindful practice. So I kept that. I don't know why that doctor gave it to me, but threw it to me and said, you keep it. And I've kept it since then. That's in the year 2000, I think, or something like that. So it's okay to get setback. It's not a hallmark of failure. It's just that you're okay. Everybody gets a setback, but again, recoil, recover, and then attack. Knowing the timeline, you still have a lot of work to do. And if you know the timeline and your worst case scenario, you fail, at least you know the timeline for your offspring, your kids, your relatives, and you can help them make it to disease-free. Listen, with this COVID-19 thing, or with diabetes, or with cholesterol and heart attack, or with cancer, we will succumb to that somewhere down the line. But if we can do it with dignity, and it would be nice if we all just passed away and within a week of old age and that was it, but we're not. We're walking dead because all this stuff just gets worse, and we're not dying, but we're walking around going to dialysis twice a week. We're walking at 0 miles an hour because we just had bypass. We're having things cut out. That's walking dead. And I think we can make so many things better if we just know this stuff, just like COVID-19. We're going to be really sick from infection once we see all these blooms worsen, but we do our best. The healthy people will stay healthy. If we can help the sick people with just a little bit of awareness, then we're cool. So hopefully this gives you a little idea what to do, Felicia. But the template's here. Everybody's engagement's a little different, but educate, empower, and conquer. So thanks for watching. If you have a comment, please put it down below on how you can fix or reverse disease. Otherwise, I'll see you at the next video.